Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty profound. This idea that inside each of us, there's this dweller in the flesh.
Right, a hidden inner being.
Exactly. And it supposedly holds the key to, well, real meaning in life. But the big question is, how do you actually connect with it? Especially when, everyday life seems to pull us away.
That really is the core challenge, isn't it? Most people are just focused on the day-to-day, what's right there in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't often stop, truly pause, to think about that deeper intelligence, you could say, that's operating within them.
Yeah.
But it is there, always influencing us.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To try and unpack how this inner being, this dweller, interacts with our body, our physical self, and the world out there.
Yeah, and why understanding that is so crucial.
Right. Why is it vital for a meaningful life? And maybe most importantly, how can we actually learn to align ourselves with its deeper purposes?
Okay, let's get into it. So our sources describe humans as, well, very complicated creatures. No argument there.
Definitely not.
But here's the twist. This really complex inner being, the dweller in the flesh, lives inside what the source calls an impermanent and almost ineffective physical structure.
Impermanent and ineffective. That sounds harsh.
It does, but think about it. Our bodies, through sickness, injury, just getting older, they often feel like they're letting us down, failing us in some way.
That's true. It's a strange contradiction, though. You'd think those limitations, the body failing, would actually push us to look inward, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
But the source points out something really interesting. These 6 circumstances, as it calls them, surprisingly rarely make us study our inner nature more deeply.
We just kind of accept it, roll with it.
Pretty much. It's just part of life. But then there's this really extraordinary claim that humanity plays an important part in its own existence.
Okay, an important part. How so?
Well, get this. The assertion is that all of history, society, knowledge, every major achievement, think pyramids, secret books, even wars, great art.
Wow, okay.
It's all due to something inside of the human being. Civilization itself is described as, and I love this phrase, a long shadow of something inside of the person.
Hold on. A long shadow of something inside. That completely reframes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's this hidden architect behind everything we do as a species.
Exactly. A deep wellspring of creativity and drive that we just don't usually acknowledge.
So if this inner self is that central, that important, why is it so darn hard to understand? The source says our own powers of comprehension kind of stumble when we try to turn them inward.
Yeah, we end up with just speculations, not real answers.
And isn't it weird how we can often, read other people pretty well, figure out their motives?
But we seldom correctly interpret our own. It's strange. Our own thoughts are described as often being unreasonable, conflicting, contradictory. We just drift.
We just drift.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels familiar. So, okay, given how much impact this inner self supposedly has, what is it? Like fundamentally, is it energy? Is it something else?
The source uses a really powerful metaphor. It describes it as an active energy, almost like a cell or a battery.
A battery.
But it's not just, raw, undirected power. This energy is what maintains all our bodily functions, even the heartbeat constantly going.
Okay, so it powers the machine.
Right. And crucially, it's the source of the machinery that allows us to form opinions, but not the opinions themselves, if that makes sense.
Okay. The capacity, not the content.
Precisely. And it stresses that each person is tremendously individual. We're not just puppets of our heredity. Our ancestry doesn't completely define this inner power.
Tremendously individual. I like that. So if this powerful inner being is working through the body, what's the ideal relationship there? Is the body meant to be like the servant?
Well, the body is called a kind of house for this inner being.
A house.
But the inner being isn't just renting space. It's also described as a creator that shapes and modifies the body. It's always trying to bring the body into harmony with its own inner purposes.
Always striving for harmony.
But here's the major problem, according to these sources. The big issue today is that we give the body or the personality that authority or that consideration which duly belongs to the being in the body.
So we flip the script. We put the house in charge instead of the dweller.
Exactly. And that's where things go wrong. The source says the body can become a tyrant, even a jailer.
A tyrant or a jailer. Wow. So what happens then? What are the consequences when the body takes over?
Well, when the body assumes mastery, it starts dictating everything, how the inner being functions, what it focuses on, And this, the source argues, leads directly to widespread, well, frustration, neurotic and psychotic states.
Because we're forced into patterns that just don't fit our inner selves.
Precisely. It's fundamentally inconsistent.
Yeah.
And when the body's the master, how does it express itself? Through appetites.
Appetites, you mean like desires, cravings?
Yes. And when those appetites are just indulged without thought, without alignment to that inner purpose, they can lead to crime.
Crime against society.
Yes, but also, significantly, crime against the body itself. Things that cause sickness, that make the body incapable of serving the being in the body.
So we sabotage the very instrument we need.
Exactly. And on top of that, there are the external pressures we're all born into, right? Our nation, race, community, family.
Sure.
These environments often aren't centered on any kind of divine purpose. They're usually focused just on survival, basic functioning.
Which creates conflict.
An endless struggle, the source calls it. Because that survival focus is often fundamentally inconsistent with the essential life in man, that deeper purpose.
Okay, that paints a pretty stark picture. Inner purpose versus bodily demands and external pressures. So how did, say, ancient wisdom deal with this? Did they have answers?
They definitely had a different perspective. The ancient philosophical view was that the ultimate life principle is, well, deity, an eternal life principle.
Deity, meaning God, or something broader.
Broader, I think.
Yeah.
An eternal principle that is fundamentally occupied and dominated by law. They believed life and law are identical.
Life and law are identical. What does that mean practically?
It means that any personal conduct, any action that deviates from this inherent inner law, well, it inevitably leads to trouble. Simple cause and effect.
Ah,
Oh.
so the consequences aren't arbitrary punishments, they're built into the system.
Exactly. This inner power, this life principle, is seen as the infinite glory of a divine reality. It's limitless, universal.
So where does our mind fit into all this? Between the divine law and our, messy human lives?
The mind is described really interestingly as a bridge between the divine and the mortal.
A bridge, okay.
It can be educated from below, facts, figures, worldly knowledge, but it must enlighten from above, meaning it needs that connection to the inner divine principle.
And what's the risk if it doesn't have that? If education is only from below?
Well, the critique is that modern education, valuable as it is, can actually become a burden upon the inner life if it doesn't ultimately serve to release that inner life factor.
How so?
By creating just a huge mass of modifying conflicting attitudes. Too much noise, basically. It prevents the simple, direct process of searching for reality within.
It sounds like maybe we, especially in the West, have kind of misunderstood the whole point of this inner life.
I think the source strongly suggests that. Western philosophy, especially what it calls industrialized materialism, has tended to assume that the inner life's main job is just to help us get stuff.
Acquire wealth, power, be successful.
Right. Success in purely material terms. And if there's any internal conflict, any part of you that rebels against that, well, it's often dismissed, brushed off as theological superstitions or just being unrealistic.
So that inner energy, that battery you mentioned earlier, it's not just neutral power we can use for anything, like getting rich.
Absolutely not. The source is really clear on this. It's not like free electricity you can just plug into for whatever you want. It's described specifically as a moral energy.
Moral energy.
Okay, what does that imply? It implies that every single use of it is a responsibility. Every choice, every action fueled by it has a moral dimension.
And misusing it, what happens then?
Misuse, driven by what the source calls self-will, just doing what you want, regardless of that inner law, is described pretty dramatically as a revolt against heaven.
A revolt against heaven.
Yeah, but heaven here isn't necessarily a place. It means a rebellion against the fundamental principles. Truth, wisdom, love, service. And this rebellion, ultimately, stops us from learning life's lessons. It blocks joy.
Wow. Okay, that's heavy. So if that's the problem, this misuse, this rebellion, what's the answer according to, history's wisdom traditions? How do we get back on track?
Well, the source points to a kind of universal truth taught across cultures by figures like Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Zoroaster, Hermes, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Pythagoras. Quite the list.
A consensus across the ages. What did they all point to?
They all pointed towards the need to control the false pressures of ourselves. Those desires, those appetites, that self-will we just talked about. That's the key to achieving unity with the divine, with that inner law.
So it's about self-control, discipline.
Yes, but not just in thought. They emphasize that meditation that does not enter conduct is an illusion.
Ooh, that's pointed. So just feeling peaceful isn't enough.
Not if your actions don't change. And similarly, Prayers without works are not going to remedy the situation. The law, that life-law connection, works a certain way. It responds to actions, not just intentions or nice words.
Okay, so if good intentions and meditation alone aren't enough, we need action, we need discipline. What does that look like day to day? Practically speaking, where do we start?
It starts fundamentally with self-study. And the source is careful to say, this isn't about being egocentric or navel-gazing.
Right, it's not selfish.
No, it's presented as a necessity. We need to study ourselves to live according to the life principle within us.
How do we do that? What does self-study involve?
It means becoming really observant, thoughtful about our own functions, especially our mental and emotional patterns, our problems. Asking yourself, why did I react that way? Why did I make that choice? What part of me was really driving that action?
Okay, becoming more self-aware. And there's a tool mentioned from Kant.
Yes, Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. It's presented as a really powerful guide for ethical decision-making.
How does it work?
Basically, when you're faced with a choice, you ask yourself this question. If everyone in the world made a decision like mine at this moment, would it be fair, honorable, and constructive to everything that lives?
Wow, that forces you way outside of your own little perspective.
Exactly. It makes you consider the universal impact of a purely personal choice. Really powerful.
And this connects back to what you said about appetites and misuse of energy.
It does. Think about unjustified wants. The source uses examples like narcotics, alcoholism, actions driven purely by desire, by shirking responsibility.
What's the consequence described there?
They're called dead ends for millions of units of energy, a complete waste. And more than that, a sin against the spirit.
Yeah.
Because they destroy the physical body, the instrument that's vital for fulfilling that divine purpose.
Destroying the temple, essentially.
Precisely. And the source even hints that such misuse, if the weakness isn't corrected, might necessitate, well, coming back to try again, reincarnation.
Okay, so the stakes are high. What about those ancient practices? You mentioned Pythagoras. What specific daily disciplines did he recommend to help people align?
Right, Pythagoras. He apparently advocated 2 key daily disciplines. First one is for the evening, retrospection.
Retrospection, looking back.
Exactly. Reviewing your day, usually in reverse order. The point is to trace the effects you experience back to their causes, your actions, thoughts, feelings from earlier in the day.
What does that achieve?
It makes you realize that nothing in this world that we can think, feel, or do that does not have consequences. It highlights how life itself, the system, kind of, corrects misuse. It gently, or not so gently, pushes us back towards integrity. You see clearly, where I did wrong, things went wrong.
So it's like developing an inner feedback loop.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the evening practice. Then there's one for the morning.
What's that one?
A concentrative exercise. This involves consciously dedicating the day ahead to the life principle that created it. Planning the day with a sense of significance.
Significance, how so?
Aiming to make some useful contribution every day. And this doesn't have to be huge, world-changing stuff.
Okay.
It could be as simple as being more sincere in your job, really earning your pay, or being more thoughtful towards your family, your colleagues, just bringing a little more integrity into your daily interactions.
And the emphasis is on planning ahead.
Yes. Planning ahead helps you gain control over future actions. Instead of always just reacting to things or trying to clean up past messes, it's proactive rather than reactive.
These practices really clarify what the source means by a useless life, then.
Absolutely. A useless life isn't just about being lazy. It's defined as a waste of divine energy.
How does that look?
Often it's characterized by things like extravagance, constant boredom, filling time with activities that add to nothing, seeking comfort, doing foolish things, just assuming that's what living is.
Just coasting.
Right. And the source is really emphatic. As long as a person has the breath of life in themselves, they can labor and learn. Wasting time isn't just inefficient, it's seen as a misuse of divine power, because time itself is given for a purpose, and wasting it wastes the life power that should have been motivating purposeful action.
Okay. As we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to that idea of the body. We started there with it being ineffective.
Yes, but there's another, much more profound perspective offered. Our bodies aren't just flawed machines. They are also described as temples, as sanctuaries of a divine power.
Temples, sanctuary.
Even living houses of worship. And the heart, specifically, is envisioned as the high altar where the divine spirit resides, which makes every single human being potentially a minister.
Every person a minister in their own temple. That's a beautiful and very different way to think about our physical selves.
Isn't it? It elevates the whole thing.
And this seems to connect to another concept mentioned, the mystery of the Eucharist. How does that fit in?
It connects through the idea of energy. The Eucharist mystery points to one energy feeding all things, not just the divine spark within us, but also the energy we receive through the sacrifice, you could say, of other living things that sustain us.
Like the wheat and bread or fruit.
Exactly. They give their energy for our sustenance. It's all part of this universal flow. This river of life is our God, the Source says. It sustains everything, from the tiniest mote of dust in a sunbeam to the vast galaxy.
All moved by one energy, obeying its laws.
All obeying inherent laws. And ultimately, this brings us back to choice. As Aquinas apparently pointed out, our inherent right to choose is also our discipline.
The fact that we can choose wrongly is part of the test.
Exactly. We have free will, which means we're capable of making mistakes. Our ultimate destiny, though, is to learn to fulfill the divine plan, to recognize our potential as divine beings, and choose to live by that inner law, not just by the body's pressures and appetites.
It sounds like a huge undertaking.
It is, but the final message isn't overwhelming, especially now, in what the Source calls these heavy times. The path forward isn't necessarily about grand gestures.
What is it about, then?
It's about small, daily victories. Each small decision you make that aligns with integrity, with that inner truth, it will strengthen us for another one tomorrow.
Little by little.
Little by little, leading towards enlightenment and companionship in the spiritual adventure of existence.
So the final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah, as you reflect on all this, maybe just ask yourself, what is one small, deliberate step you can take today, right now, to honor that dweller in the flesh within you?